This happened just last year. My buddy Jimmy is deeply embedded, almost unnaturally sowing the music community. By that I mean the dance and electronic music scene crawling along the East Coast, especially in those places where the night never really ends, New Jersey and New York. What he and his team have built over just 2 years is nothing short of unnerving. The whole operation works like this. They host what they call events at high-profile venues, always the most popular clubs, the ones pulsing with something darker beneath the lights. Then they bring in the talent, and I'm not talking about amateurs. These are often big-name DJs, sometimes with faces that feel eerily familiar, even if you swear you've never seen them before. I'm not exactly involved in that world, so I can't say who they've had. But I can tell you there's something about the way people talk about those names. Like they're not just performers, but something more. Anyway, that's enough background. Jimmy and I go back way back. Over 20 years, and he's been more than just a friend for most of that. A brother, almost. Because of that bond, he always lets me and our old crew come to his shows for free. VIP treatment. Front row seats to whatever madness unfolds. It's one of those perks I never say thank you for nearly enough. Jimmy had something massive planned for July 4th weekend, right on the Jersey Shore. He said it would be the biggest event they'd ever thrown. Everyone we knew was going. Jimmy asked me to come early with him, and of course I agreed. The three of us, me, Jimmy, and our friend Rian, took the hour-and-a-half drive to the venue. Arriving for full hours before the doors were set to open. There wasn't much for Ryan and me to do while Jimmy and his crew handled the setup. So we started drinking early, recklessly. The venue had offered them unlimited drinks, no questions asked, no strings. Ryan and I took full advantage like moths to flame. By the time the first DJ began to spin, Ryan and I were already half gone buzzed to the point of forgetting where the edge was. It was the 4th of July after all, and there was something in the air that made the bad decisions feel festive, like they were supposed to happen. A few more hours passed, and by then, we were gone. Fully, I don't think I've ever reached that level of drunkenness again, not even close. But let me be clear, Anne, and I could hold our liquor. This wasn't about getting sick or causing a scene. No, the danger was subtler. Our impulse control was shredded. Our judgment dissolved. And in that fog, we laughed and drank and drifted, unaware of what was coming. From what I can recall, we were having a blast. The night began to wind down. That hour came, the one where you either figured out where you were going or who you were going there with. Or both. Jimmy had rented an Airbnb close by and promised Ryan and me each a bed, so getting home wasn't a problem. But the second part, the part where your path crosses with someone else's, even if it's someone or something you don't quite recognize, that's what kept gnawing at the edge of my mind. The two of us drifted toward the bar, our movements loose and careless, and soon we found ourselves talking to a couple of girls we found attractive. There was something about them that drew us in, something we couldn't quite name. And before long, we had figured out who we were going to be spending the rest of the night with. Neither Ryan nor I are anything special to look at. Definitely not models or anything like that, but we're both over 6 feet tall. That alone seems to count for a lot around the Jersey Shore, where most of the guys tend to be shorter than average. For some strange reason, height is the main thing girls out there seem to care about. Not looks, not personality, not brains, just height. I don't know why. Maybe I never will. The minds of Jersey girls are something I'll never truly understand. I'm probably messing up their names, but I'm pretty sure the two girls introduced themselves as Giana and Marcela. It's around this part of the night meeting them that my memory starts to blur. From here on out, things get harder to piece together. It's like trying to remember a dream that's already fading. From what I do recall, it was Marcela who suggested we all leave together and keep the party going somewhere else. Ryan and I didn't hesitate. Giana handed us each a drink and said we needed to get on their level before heading out, even though we had probably already swallowed enough alcohol to drown ourselves. Yeah, I know girls handing drinks to guys. It's not typical. It felt a little off. But these girls looked like money. Expensive clothes, jewelry that didn't look fake. The kind of polish that doesn't come cheap. After we downed the drinks, the four of us headed toward the exit. The moment we stepped outside, Marcela suggested we go back to her place. A beach house just a few blocks away. That caught me off guard. Usually it's the guys offering their place. But both girls insisted her beach house was way nicer than the Airbnb we had booked inland. They made a good point. I didn't argue. Ryan didn't either. We started walking along the beach, the ocean dark and endless beside us. The wind was cold, but our conversation stayed warm. The girls talked about things that surprised me: politics, psychology, art. There was a sharpness to them, a kind of intelligence that made me feel like I had to keep up. For once, I was talking about something other than parties, gossip, or the usual meaningless noise that fills nights like these. And then, without warning, it hit me. A wave of something drunkenness, but not the kind I was used to. It felt wrong. I started to feel heavier. My body felt like it was melting, my weight pulling me downward like wet clay. My legs lost their strength. They felt flimsy, almost fake, like they were made of cardboard. Every movement, my arms, my mouth, even blinking, started to feel like I was pushing against invisible weights. Then my fingers started to go numb, just a little, just enough to notice. And then, just like that passed, the fog lifted. It's not completely, but enough. I chalked it up to the alcohol and forced myself to keep moving. That's when we arrived at the beach house. It didn't look real. Maybe it was the booze talking, but I swear it looked like something out of a movie. Huge, cold, expensive. Like it had never been lived in, only staged. We walked inside, took our shoes off, and stepped into what I guessed was the living room, though it didn't feel like any living room I'd ever seen. It was elegant and minimal, but also full. There were actual sculptures on white pedestals, art that felt out of place at a party. Still, nothing seemed crowded. Everything looked like it belonged there, like the walls had grown around the decorations. It was unsettling in a way I couldn't quite explain. I wanted to take a picture, but I didn't. My mind wasn't focused. And neither was Ryan's bee, because not even 15 minutes after we walked in, and Marcela vanished somewhere into that house. Gone, just like that. And suddenly I was alone. It's alone with Giana. She leaned in to kiss me, and that's where everything stops. I don't remember the kiss, not the feeling of her lips, not even the moment of contact, just her face coming closer and then darkness. That's where it all cuts out. No spinning room, no collapsing, no more drinks, nothing. But here's the part that still haunts me. I know I didn't pass out. I have proof. Texts on my phone, sent from me, full sentences, responses, conversations. I was awake. I was functioning. I was alive and aware. But I remember none of it. And before you say it, no, this wasn't some regular alcohol blackout. I've had those before. I know what they feel like. Even during those times, I could piece together bits, flashes, fragments of the night. But this was empty. Just erased. Gone. And what terrifies me most is how certain I am that this wasn't normal. Something else happened that night. Something I still can't explain. Plus, Ryan went through the exact same thing at nearly the exact same time, and that part still gets to me. It's too perfect. It's too synchronized. That kind of timing doesn't happen by chance. Not without a reason. Not without something doing it. Here's the next thing I can actually remember. I woke up with the sun beating down on me high in the sky, directly overhead. I was lying in the middle of some random bushes, just a few blocks from the venue. Not even in the same neighborhood. I was over an hour away from where the event had been. At first I didn't know that, because my phone was gone. I reached into my pocket, expecting to feel the familiar shape of it. But there was nothing. Not the phone, not my wallet, not my keys. But then it hit me I wasn't even wearing my pants. These weren't my pockets at all. I was wearing someone else's clothes, not Ryan's. Not anything I had ever seen before. Strangers. And it gets worse. The only thing I still had on me that belonged to me were my shoes, and even those weren't right. Both shoes were soaked through, heavy with water. The laces had been removed, sloppily, like someone had yanked them out in a hurry. My head felt like it was splitting open. My vision was blurry. My ears rang. Everything around me spun slightly, like the world hadn't fully reloaded yet. Like I was coming out of anesthesia. Like I was waking up in someone else's body. I didn't sit up, not at first. I just lay there, staring at the sky, trying to remember, trying to breathe, trying to understand where I was and what had happened. Bushes, strangers' clothes, no phone, no ID, no way home. I looked down at my shoes again, wet, dirty, twisted. I must have been in water recently. It's the only explanation. But the strange thing was, I didn't smell like salt water, chlorine, nothing that made sense. Just damp earth and something else, something faint but unpleasant, like metal or rot. And through it all, the most terrifying part wasn't the missing items or the wrong clothes. It was the emptiness. A blank, hollow space in my memory, stretching from the moment Giana leaned in to kiss me to the second I opened my eyes in those bushes. Nothing in between. No dreams, no fragments, no flashes, just silence. And that's when the panic really started. Not loud at first, just a slow creep, like a shadow moving across your chest. But it grew. It tightened. It whispered that something was very, very wrong, that whatever had happened during those missing hours, it hadn't ended yet. That's when the panic truly started to creep in. This wasn't just a hangover. This was fear, real fear. I had no idea how I ended up there. What if I'd been in a fight? What if I crashed a car? What if someone drugged me? I didn't have a single clue what happened in the last 10 hours. Not one piece of solid memory. I stood up and looked around, and that made it worse. There were no landmarks, no signs of where I was. It didn't even feel like a beach town anymore. The road curved off into endless trees. If everything around me looked like the edge of nowhere. But across the street, maybe a few hundred feet away, I saw something. A 7-Eleven, the only thing in sight that felt remotely real. So I walked straight to it. I asked the guy at the counter if I could use his phone. Told him mine had been stolen. He looked at me for a second, probably trying to decide if I was lying. Then, thankfully, he slid the phone across the counter. The first number that came to mind was my sister's, the only number besides my parents that I still had memorized. And there was no way in hell I was calling Mom or Dad. My sister picked up immediately. I tried to explain what was going on, what little I could. She gave me Ryan's number, and I called him over and over again. No answer. That's when the fear twisted even deeper. What if the same thing had happened to Ryan? Drugged, robbed, dumped in bushes, left alone to wake up in someone else's clothes. I was just about to call the police, hand hovering over the keypad when the door to the 7-Eleven opened, and Ryan walked in. We locked eyes. We didn't say anything at first, just stared. Then we dapped each other up more out of shock than habit, and he told me what had happened to him. It was the same story, almost word for word. That sealed it. We called the police. We made sure to thank the 7-Eleven worker like 5 times before stepping outside. The cop showed up pretty quickly. We told them everything, every strange detail, and at first, they listened, took us seriously, asked the right questions. But the longer we talked, the more their tone shifted. Questions started to change. Were we sure we hadn't just gotten blackout drunk? Were we sure we hadn't wandered off and passed out somewhere? They didn't accuse us outright, but it was obvious they were starting to doubt the story. They didn't believe something criminal had happened. I told them it was nearly impossible for 2 guys to drunkenly wander an hour away by foot while also managing to end up in different clothes. That comment didn't sit well with them. I gave them my sister's number and asked them to call her. She'd been tracking my phone through Find My iPhone. To everyone's surprise, my phone was pinging from a parking lot just a few minutes away. The officers agreed to drive us. When we got there, sure enough, both of our phones were lying there on the pavement, side by side, not hidden, just sitting out in the open. Having my phone back should have made me feel better, but instead it just made everything feel more wrong, because now the cops were convinced nothing had happened. They said we probably just dropped our phones, lost our wallets, and forgot everything because we were too drunk. We asked them, begged them, really, to check out the house Marcela had taken us to, but they wouldn't budge. They said we must have remembered it wrong, that maybe it wasn't her house at all. One of them even muttered, "Happens more than you think." Then they gave us their cards and said to call if we remembered anything else. And just like that, they left. After they were gone, I finally went through my phone, and that's when things got even weirder. There were messages sent from me to a ton of people I knew: Jimmy, my parents, coworkers, even a couple girls I'd been texting. All normalsounding.com/casual. The kind of messages I would send after a regular night out. But none of them made sense. One message to Jimmy said thanks for the event and told him we had crashed at a buddy's place. Another to my dad said we were safe and sleeping on someone's couch. Another to a girl said I was just hanging out at home thinking about you. None of it added up. The texts didn't just contradict the truth, they contradicted each other. I noticed a bunch of missed calls and texts from Jimmy, so I called him. He picked up immediately, clearly relieved. Said he thought Ryan and I had died. Told us to stay put. He'd come get us. While we waited, Ryan and I started canceling our cards. But here's the strange part, none of them had been used. Not a single attempt. Despite the fact that whoever had them, likely those girls, had been in possession of them for hours. On the ride home, we talked nonstop, trying to piece it together, trying to make it make sense. We agreed on one thing. We'd been drugged. But even that didn't explain it all. I don't know of any drug nothing over the counter or on the street that causes a blackout like that. Not without knocking you out cold. Every article I've read says that stuff makes you sleep. But I was awake, talking, texting, functioning. There's proof. And if it was just to rob us, why all the effort? Why take our clothes? Why not use the credit cards? Why drive us out to the middle of nowhere? And if that house was really theirs, why do something so risky on your own property? Or had they broken in, used someone else's place as a setup? Neither answer made it any less disturbing. Jimmy thought maybe we'd been targeted, but that didn't make sense either. We approached them. They didn't come looking for us. We still hadn't even figured out why we woke up an hour away in other people's clothes. As wild as it sounds, we even checked ourselves for incisions, scars, anything that might mean something had been taken from us. Nothing. Jimmy suggested they might have slipped us some exotic drug, something experimental, something not even on the books. It was a theory, but that still didn't explain everything. Someone had driven us. Someone had changed our clothes. Someone had placed our phones side by side, like we were part of some display. We never got an answer, but we didn't just let it go. Ryan and I actually went back. Drove all the way back to the Jersey Shore, walked the boardwalk, tried to retrace every possible step. Eventually, we found the house. We walked up, nervous as hell, and rang the doorbell. An older man answered, stern, curious. I did the talking, careful not to say too much. I asked if a girl named Marcela lived there, if he had a daughter or granddaughter around our age. He shook his head. Flat, no. I told him some girl had lied to us about owning the place. He laughed. Thought it was a weird joke. That was it. Conversation over. As we walked away, I felt something. Not quite fear, something worse. A cold, crawling sickness in my gut. Like something had been done to us. Something we weren't meant to understand. Something that was already over and would never be explained. For weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling. And to this day, I still think about those girls. What they were really part of, what they were planning, and why, at the last possible second, they stopped. Whatever it was bigger than us. I know I'll never get closure. But if anything else ever happens, if any piece of this ever surfaces again, I'll be sure to send something. This story may be over, but the strange never sleeps. Subscribe now, and you'll be the first to know what's lurking in the next one.